On December 2, 2015, in a terrorist attack which consisted of a mass shooting and an attempted bombing in San Bernardino, California, 14 people were killed and 22 were seriously injured. Saeed Rizwan Farouk and Tashfeen Malik, a married couple living in the city of Redlands, targeted a San Bernardino County Department of Public Health training event and holiday party, of about 80 employees, in a rented banquet room. Farouk was an American-born U.S. citizen of Pakistani descent, who was a health department employee. Malik was a Pakistani-born lawful permanent resident of the United States. After the shooting, the couple fled in a rented sport utility vehicle. 4 hours later, police pursued their vehicle and killed them in a shootout. On December 3, the Federal Bureau of Investigation opened a counter-terrorism investigation. On December 6, in a primetime address delivered from the Oval Office, President Barack Obama called the shooting an act of terrorism. According to FBI Director James B. Comey, the FBI's investigation revealed that the perpetrators were homegrown violent extremists, inspired by foreign terrorist groups, but were not directed by such groups or part of a terrorist cell or network. FBI investigators have said that Farouk and Malik had become radicalized over several years prior to the attack, consuming poison on the internet, and expressing a commitment to jihadism and martyrdom in private messages to each other. Farouk and Malik had traveled to Saudi Arabia in the years before the attack. The couple had amassed a large stockpile of weapons, ammunition, and bomb-making equipment in their home. Enrique Marquez Jr., a friend and former neighbor of Farouk, was investigated in connection with his purchase of the 2 rifles used in the attack. Marquez was arrested on December 17 and charged with 3 federal criminal counts: conspiracy to provide material support for terrorism, making a false statement in connection with acquisition of firearms, and immigration fraud. Federal prosecutors allege that in 2011, Farouk and Marquez conspired to carry out shooting and bombing attacks, which they abandoned at the time. The attack was the second deadliest mass shooting in California after the 1984 San Isidro McDonald's massacre, and the deadliest in the U.S. since the 2012 Sandy Hook Elementary School shooting. It was also the worst terrorist attack to occur in the U.S. since the September 11 attacks. Perpetrators Saeed Rizwan Farouk and Tashfeen Malik left their 6-month-old daughter with Farouk's mother at their Redlands home the morning of the attack, saying they were going to a doctor's appointment. Farouk, a health inspector for the San Bernardino County Department of Public Health, attended a departmental event at the banquet room of the Inland Regional Center. The event began as a semi-annual all-staff meeting and training event, and was in the process of transitioning into a department holiday party luncheon when the shooting began. There were 91 invited guests, with 75 to 80 people to have been in attendance. Co-workers reported that Farouk had been quiet early on in the event and noticed he had left the party abruptly, leaving his coat and some papers before a group photo was taken. There were some reports that an argument occurred before his departure. In police briefings, it was said he left under angry circumstances. At 10:59 a.m. PST, Farouk and Malik, armed with semi-automatic pistols and semi-automatic rifles, opened fire on those in attendance. They wore ski masks and black tactical gear, but not ballistic or bulletproof vests. The entire shooting took less than 4 minutes. They fired between 65 and 75 bullets. The perpetrators departed the scene before police arrived. An unidentified source told an NPR journalist that witnesses appeared to recognize Farouk by his voice and build. Sources reported that Malik pledged bay'ah to the leader of ISIL on a Facebook account associated with her as the attack was underway. Later reports described the posting as being made on behalf of both shooters. The perpetrators left 3 explosive devices connected to one another at the Inland Regional Center. The devices were described as 3 pipe bombs tied together combined with a remote-controlled car. The devices failed to explode. Authorities believe that the pipe bombs were meant to target the emergency personnel responding to the scene. The device was hidden inside a canvas bag, and its build was similar to schematics published in Al-Qaeda's Inspire magazine. Police response: it took 4 minutes for the 1st Police Unit to respond to the shooting following the initial 911 emergency call. At 11:14 a.m., the San Bernardino Fire Department made a Twitter post about an emergency on the 1300 block of Waterman Avenue, with the police working to clear the scene. Roads in the area were closed to traffic. 2 police officers arrived almost simultaneously, when another officer arrived 2 minutes later. The 3 officers entered the building and began to evacuate the survivors. The San Bernardino SWAT team happened to be conducting its monthly training exercise a few miles away from the scene at the time of the attack, which allowed them to quickly arrive at the scene. Ultimately, about 300 officers and agents from city, county, state and federal agencies responded to the active shooter event, converging on the scene as people were being evacuated. Police used a battering ram to get into the complex. The FBI and the Los Angeles Police Department Counter-Terrorism Unit were called in to assist. Police were on the lookout for a black SUV used by the perpetrators to flee the scene. The explosive devices placed by the perpetrators were later detonated by a bomb squad. The U.S. Department of Homeland Security sent a Pilatus PC-12 surveillance aircraft to the area, which circled the skies above San Bernardino for hours, mainly in the area where the shooting took place and in areas under investigation by police. Departed after the shootout between the perpetrators and police. Shootout law enforcement began the search for the suspects. A witness gave Farouk's name to police, who quickly learned that he had rented a black Ford Expedition SUV with Utah license plates 4 days before the attack, based on a tip provided by one of Farouk's neighbors. Officers went to the perpetrator's Redlands home on North Center Street for surveillance but had to give chase when the perpetrators fled the house. At least one fake explosive, a metal pipe stuffed with cloth made to resemble a pipe bomb, was thrown at the police during the pursuit. After the SUV was stopped, the couple exchanged fire with police from inside their vehicle on East San Bernardino Avenue, about 1.7 miles away from the scene of the mass shooting. It began around 3 p.m., about 4 hours after the initial attack at the Inland Regional Center had begun. Police used multiple Bearcat armored personnel carriers in confronting the shooters. The gunfire lasted under a minute before both perpetrators were killed. The sheriff's department confirmed that a man and a woman were killed. 7 police agencies were involved in the final shootout, with 23 officers firing a combined total of approximately 380 rounds. The perpetrators fired 76 rifle rounds. During the shootout, police asked residents to stay indoors. Initial news reports and witness accounts led to a search for up to 3 shooters, but police eventually determined that there were only 2. Investigators in armored vehicles at the townhouse of the perpetrators considered ordering an evacuation, but instead ordered the neighborhood to shelter in place and cordoned off the area. From 4 p.m. to 5:30 p.m., police asked residents of the area to stay in their homes with doors locked and secure after residents reported a person jumping fences. No one was found. The reports may have been from officers at the scene. A person detained after running away from the scene of the shootout was thought to be a possible third suspect, but police determined that he was not connected to the shooting. The person was booked on an unrelated outstanding misdemeanor warrant. Victims. In the Inland Regional Center attack, 14 civilians were killed, and 22 others were injured, either by gunshot wounds or other causes. Once the injured were extracted from the building, it took about 15 minutes for them to get to the hospital. 5 patients were transported to nearby Loma Linda University Medical Center and 6 were transported to Arrowhead Regional Medical Center. 1 police officer was hospitalized with a bullet wound suffered during the gunfight. Another officer was injured by flying glass or shrapnel. The 14 deceased range in age from 26 to 60. 9 were residents of San Bernardino County, the others were from nearby Riverside, Los Angeles, and Orange counties. 3 of the deceased victims, Isaac Imanios, Benita Bet Bard Valentina Wen, had come to the United States to escape violence or persecution in their home countries. 12 of the 14 dead were county employees, 10 were environmental health specialists. List of fatal victims. Perpetrators. 2 perpetrators were identified. Married couple Saeed Rizwan Farouk and Tashfeen Malik. Saeed Rizwan Farouk. Saeed Rizwan Farouk was born in Chicago, Illinois, and was a U.S. citizen. His parents had immigrated from Pakistan. According to sources, he had a troubled childhood, and grew up in an abusive home. Farouk grew up in Riverside, California, and attended La Sierra High School, graduating in 2004, 1 year early. He attended California State University, San Bernardino, and received a bachelor's degree in environmental health in either 2009 or 2010. He was a student for 1 semester in 2014 at California State University, Fullerton in their graduate program for environmental engineering, but never completed the program. Farouk had a profile on the dating website Imalap.com, in which he listed backyard target practice as a hobby. A lawyer for Farouk's family also said that he would go to firing ranges by himself. Occupation. Farouk worked as a food inspector for the San Bernardino County Department of Public Health for 5 years before the shooting. From July to December 2010, he was a seasonal employee for the county. He was hired as an environmental health specialist trainee on January 28, 2012, and became a permanent employee on February 8, 2014. Co-workers described Farouk as quiet and polite and said that he held no obvious grudges. Religious views and travels. According to family members and co-workers, Farouk was a devout Sunni Muslim, and traveled to Saudi Arabia several times, including to complete the Hajj in 2013. Farouk attended prayers at the Islamic Center of Riverside twice a day, in the mornings and the evenings. According to an interview in the New York Times with Mustafa H. Kuko, the center's director. According to the Times, Farouk stood out as especially devout and kept a bit of a distance from other congregants. During that time, according to friends, he never discussed politics. Farouk abruptly stopped going to the mosque in 2014 following his marriage. According to an Italian newspaper, La Stampa, Farouk's father said that his son shared the ideology of al-Baghdadi to create an Islamic state, and he was fixated with Israel. Tashfeen Malik was born in Pakistan but had lived for most of her life in Saudi Arabia. Her original hometown was Karol Al-Azan, 280 miles southwest of Islamabad, Pakistan. Her landowning family was described as politically influential in the town. Studies in Malton. Malik returned to Pakistan to study pharmacology at Bahauddin Zakaria University in Malton, beginning the program in 2007 and graduating in 2012. Saudi Interior Ministry spokesman Major General Mansour El-Turka denied reports that Malik grew up in his country, saying that she only visited Saudi Arabia for a few weeks in 2008 and again in 2013. The city of Malton has been linked to jihadist activity. While in Malton, Malik attended the local center of the Al-Huda International Seminary, a women-only religious academy network with seminaries across Pakistan and branches in the U.S. and Canada. The Washington Post reported that the seminary is aligned with the particularly conservative Wahhabi interpretation of Sunni Islam, according to school records. Malik enrolled in an 18-month Quranic studies course with Al-Huda on April 17, 2013, and left on May 3, 2014, telling administrators that she was leaving to get married. Malik expressed an interest in completing the course by correspondence, but never did so. According to experts, Al-Huda, which was founded in 1994, draws much of its support from women from educated, relatively affluent backgrounds. Faiza Mushtaq, a Pakistani scholar that studied the organization, said that these Al-Huda classes is teaching these urban, educated, upper-middle-class women a very conservative interpretation of Islam that makes them very judgmental about others around them, according to the Los Angeles Times. Al-Huda seminaries promote anti-Western views and hardline practices in a fashion that could encourage some adherents to lash out against non-believers. The New York Times reported that the institute teaches a strict literalist interpretation of the Quran, although it does not advocate violent jihad. An Al-Huda administrator from the head office in Islamabad said that terrorism is against the teachings of Islam, and that the school's curriculum did not endorse violence, marriage and entry into United States. According to one of Farouk's co-workers, Malik and her husband married about a month after he traveled to Saudi Arabia in early 2014. The two had met over the internet. Malik joined Farouk in California shortly after their wedding. A U.S. marriage certificate reported their marriage in Riverside on August 16, 2014. At the time of her death, Malik and Farouk had a 6-month-old daughter. Malik entered the United States on a K-1 visa with a Pakistani passport. According to a State Department spokesman, all applicants for such visas are fully screened. Malik's application for permanent residency was completed by Farouk on her behalf in September 2014, and she was granted a conditional green card in July 2015. Obtaining such a green card would have required the couple to prove that the marriage was legitimate, as is standard practice. As part of her visa application with the State Department and application for a green card, Malik submitted her fingerprints and underwent 3 extensive national security and criminal background screenings, using Homeland Security and State Department databases. Malik also underwent 2 in-person interviews, the first with a consular officer in Pakistan and the second with an immigration officer in the U.S., after applying for a green card. On December 16, FBI Director James Comey said, "We can see from our investigation that in late 2013, before there is a physical meeting of these 2 people, Farouk and Malik, resulting in their engagement and then journey to the United States, they are communicating online, showing signs in that communication of their joint commitment to jihadism and to martyrdom. Those communications are direct, private messages." Early reports had erroneously stated that Malik had openly expressed jihadist beliefs on social media, leading to calls for U.S. immigration officials to routinely review social media as part of background checks, which is not part of the current procedure. Comey subsequently clarified that the remarks were direct private messages that were not publicly accessible and that, so far, in this investigation, we have found no evidence of posting on social media. Comey said that the FBI's investigation had revealed that Farouk and Malik were consuming poison on the internet, and both had become radicalized before they started courting or dating each other online, and before the emergence of ISIL. As a result, Comey said that untangling the motivations of which particular terrorist propaganda motivated in what way remains a challenge in these investigations. and our work is ongoing there. Malik reportedly had become very religious in the years before the attack, wearing both the niqab and burqa while urging others to do so as well. Pakistani media reported that Malik had ties to the radical Red Mosque in Islamabad, but a cleric and a spokesman from the mosque vehemently denied these claims, saying that they had never heard of Malik before the shooting. Malik's estranged relatives say that she had left the moderate Islam of her family and had become radicalized while living in Saudi Arabia. Saudi Interior Ministry spokesman Al-Turka rejected this claim, stating that Saudi officials received no indication that Malik was radicalized while living there. Malik was one of a small number of female mass shooters in the U.S. Women constituted only 3.75% of active shooters in the U.S. from 2000 to 2013.